Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the saddest movie of all time, and one of the saddest figures in that movie. We're going to be talking about St. Peter and Passion of the Christ. All right, so if you have not seen Passion of the Christ, I highly recommend you see it. I always like to watch it during Lent, but you don't have to watch it during Lent. You can watch it any time of the year because we are always renewing our faith. We are always walking with Jesus in his passion. I always cry during the movie. Every year I cry while watching this movie. However, this year I cried in a part where I'd never cried before. I cried when poor St. Peter, when poor St. Peter is being harassed by the mob and they're saying, surely you know this man, for you two are a Galilean. And he's just freaking out and starts cursing and says, I do not know the man. And he falls down and he sees Jesus getting beat up and he just starts sobbing and weeping. And then he sees Mary and he runs to her and says that he's denied him, and then he runs away. I thought, how many times have I been like Peter? How many times have I denied knowing Jesus? How many times through my sin I have just been, nope, I'm not a follower of Christ now. I'm not a follower of Christ today. And yet, St. Peter is one of the greatest saints of all time. When we die, theoretically, he's the first saint that we're going to see when we get to heaven, right? Because he's got the keys to the kingdom. I never verified that. I don't know because I've never gone to heaven. But theoretically, the story goes we're going to see St. Peter first. Don't know if that's true, but he's the greatest, one of the greatest saints. And yet he denied Jesus 3 times in an epic way. And then he didn't even go through the procession. He wasn't even there when Jesus was crucified, which is crazy to me that he was not there with Jesus. Oh my gosh, like it's such a missed opportunity. But oh my goodness, so let's talk about that. So something that really strikes me is the fact that when I saw that, I started crying. I've done this to you so many times. However, we haven't gotten, there is theoretically going to be a movie after Passion of the Christ. I know Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel are working on that. It's going to be about the resurrection. But if you look at the Gospel of John, after the resurrection, when Jesus appears to some of the disciples while they're out fishing, and then they don't recognize Jesus, and then they recognize Jesus, and they come ashore, and Jesus cooks them breakfast, Jesus asks Peter 3 times, do you love me? And Peter says, you know that I love you. And he asks him 3 times, and he says, feed my sheep and tend my sheep. So this is where I really want us to connect with St. Peter, because we have all denied Jesus. All of us have done that. Yes, maybe you don't fall into mortal sin or you commit really terrible sins, but let's face it, Mary is the only person to ever walk the face of the earth who never commit a single sin. She is it. That's it. So all of us are sinners before us. All of us have denied knowing Jesus through our sin. Oof, I know. But we need to ask forgiveness right away. We need to just say, if you know you've sinned, maybe say a little act of contrition to yourself, either silently or out loud or whatever works for you. Try to get to confession as soon as possible if it is a mortal sin. And I personally, I have such a special devotion to Mary, right? We are Catholics. We venerate her. We do not worship her, blah, blah, blah. Her whole job is to bring us closer to Jesus. I love to go to confession. And then most of the churches by me have an Our Lady of Guadalupe, because she is my favorite, Our Lady of Guadalupe picture right nearby. I'll go to confession, I'll do my penance, and then I'll say a little Hail Mary for Mary, asking her for strength. Just like Peter, he ran to Mary right afterwards. I wish he had kind of stayed with Mary instead of running away, but what can you do? So we need to be like St. Peter like that. Go to confession right away, and then we need to feed and tend his sheep. Okay, so Jesus tells Peter this obviously because Peter is going to be the first pope. We obviously, I don't assume anyone watching this is going to be Pope. Probably not, especially if you're a woman, no chance of that. But even if we are not in some special leadership position, we are all called to feed and tend sheep because we're all sheep. Every single human being in the world is a sheep because Jesus is the great shepherd. Now, if you are a parent, you feed and tend your sheep through your children. If you are an employer or a boss or a manager, you feed and tend your sheep through your employees. Even if you are in a secular job, like I am, I have a secular job, I try and feed and tend to my coworkers. They're not under me, I'm not a boss or anything like that, but I try and do that through my secular job. If you're in a leadership position at your parish, you're going to feed and tend your sheep that way. If you are an older sibling, you're going to feed and tend your sheep through your younger siblings. Even if you are a young kid, all your siblings are older than you, there's no one like under you that you need to feed and tend to, you can still feed and tend to your older siblings, whether it be helping them out without ask, or to your parents, helping them out without ask, praying for your parents, praying for your older siblings. Get into that habit of taking care of people and assisting them, especially spiritually. And if they do not want your assistance, you feed and tend to them through prayer and perhaps fasting. If you're old enough to fast, you do it that way as well. So we're all called to be little Peters, because I don't think any of us are going to die a terrible, gruesome death like St. Peter was when he was crucified upside down. Oof. We're not, God, and in some parts of the world, you know, Christianity is so persecuted, but that's another topic for another day. Very interesting that Peter commit this terrible sin, because when you watch the movie, oh my gosh, and you see Peter denying Jesus, and he's right there getting beat up, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how can you deny him? It's happening right there. He's been your friend for the last 3 years. You've gone through everything together. You've seen him with Moses and Elijah conversing in the Transfiguration. There's so much, it's just, how could he do that? Oh, but he's, again, one of the greatest saints there is. Recently, a few weeks ago, I was on a retreat with the Sisters of Life, and the priest on that retreat was giving everyone on the retreat a blessing with a relic of Saint Therese of Lisieux. Cool, right? You guys know I love Saint Therese of Lisieux. I was totally down for that blessing. While he's blessing us, he says, through the intercession of Saint Therese, through King David, through so-and-so and so. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. I'm getting a blessing through the intercession of King David? Wait, I don't know if I want a blessing through the intercession of King David. King David, we all know what happened with him. He was not exactly the best father. He was not exactly the best husband. Not exactly just the best. And I was just thinking, I don't know if I want this, but he was a great servant of God, though a deeply, deeply flawed man. He was a great servant of God. I didn't realize that we could receive blessings through his intercession. Again, I didn't think we could receive blessings through the intercession of anyone from the Old Testament, but apparently we can. So, yeah, some of these great saints, these great people from the Bible and otherwise, had terrible past and commit terrible sins, which is okay, because guess what? We're all sinful people too. Can you guys let me know in the comments what you think of this lighting? I am trying a different setting on my camera. I'm still fiddling around with it. I think I made it too dark, but let me know. I'm not as close to the window as I usually like to be. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen Passion of the Christ, if you've ever cried at the St. Peter part. Personally, I always cry with the Mary part when Jesus falls and meets his mother, and you know, they have the little flashback. It's just such a well done movie. I love Passion of the Christ. It's just so good. And I really hope that they do make that resurrection movie very soon, because I'm very excited for that. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on St. Peter and in that moment. And I love you guys. Please subscribe if you have not already, and hit the bell so you never miss one of my videos. I truly appreciate it. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!